Greetings and salutations, my friends from Cambridge, my old stomping grounds. I miss it very much, and I apologize I can't be there in person. I was tasked to give a presentation that both an eighth grader and could understand, and professors would stay interested in. That is an impossible task to give within 1 hour. But I am going to do my best, and I apologize for my failings in this. I am a neural researcher. I've, since childhood, have always wondered how to connect humans, the nervous system, their electrical impulses, into computers. And we have done it. We've done it quite well. I went to many schools and multiple degrees, Ivy Leagues, and I remember Noam Chomsky, one of my favorite linguistic professors and computer natural language processing. And I studied under Barbara Gross at Harvard in artificial intelligence, and I've enjoyed my stay very much. I'm sorry I can't be back there to present in person. I have many other tasks to do. Um, Very quickly, my background, worked for DARPA on projects for the CIA. I've worked on projects for the Department of Defense, Army, Navy. Uh, uh, some of the projects worked on writing the artificial intelligence code, tracked Soviet nuclear submarine fleet, voice morphing, identification recognition, and incorporating all the databases to find terrorists from local, federal levels, many things. And I don't want to really get into my background. I like Socrates' quote, great minds discuss ideas, small minds discuss people. So let's get on with the presentation. Do you want the good news or bad news first? Everybody wants the good news first. So we're going to start off with the positive applications of neurotechnologies, and such as locked-in syndrome and paraplegics. We can now actually get into their minds and allow them a gateway to access the outside world. We can allow them to manipulate limbs with just their thoughts alone and their nervous system. We can treat mental illness. We can identify it immediately when it happens. We can we have so many amazing technologies that you creators are going to come up with as soon as this technology transfer occurs, when the military, US government allows such things to happen or be recreated. But let's talk about one of my favorite inventions. Is called the empathy machine, and it's something Facebook is even working on. It's how do you clone people's emotions onto the other person? Now, as humans, we use body language and we use voice intonations and etc. to express our emotions. But this is direct. This is direct neural interfacing and manipulation of your moods to enhance communication. I mean, imagine a doctor who could feel the pain of their patients, and immediately when they come into ER says, "Oh, that's not just gas pain. He's actually having pancreatitis or let's say a heart attack versus just indigestion. I mean, the doctor, if he would go through such pain and was really dedicated to his work, would be able to identify these things, these illnesses immediately. Um, I mean, you can imagine things like just partners. You said something to me and it made me feel bad. I want you to feel my pain. You feel my emotional pain. It could bring them, closer together. I mean, so this could be a therapeutic tool. Um, I mean, the list is just huge. Think of United Nations just trying to bring people together. They can't lie under certain circumstances of neural interfacing, which I will get further into. But the it's so profound, the fundamental changes of society, which will occur when we come to grips with what us neuroscientists have done and we're willing to adjust as a society. Um, other topics I'm just reading through my slide: increased intelligence and productivity. Productivity increases at the speed of light and speed of thought in hive minds. How are you going to beat that? I mean, that is what we're coming to, and that's important, and that's our direction. There's no lie fMRI. I mean, a very primitive system right now, but it's been accepted in a few court cases that the perpetrator cannot lie from his own brain. We can identify the signals of recognition of the person in the body, and whole bunch of things are going to change in the justice system. But I'll get to some of the questions later, which society really needs to deal with. Speed of thought, connection to the internet. I mean, we're even we're going past just being able to type into many computers to Google. We're going directly to the source. That is going to be amazing. Think of all the new ideas that are going to be created from this. Uh, it's a wonderful, wonderful idea. I apologize if my gaze isn't directly at the slides, at, at the video. Um, so I already talked about how Facebook had a secret lab. I don't know how secret it is. Been many leaks about it. Communicating emotions. I don't know what that looks like exactly. If it's some sort of helmet that you were supposed to put on with magnetic fields around it. But anyway, it gives you an idea that these technologies are getting more advanced. Sony has patents on video games that you feel the real pain while you're doing it. Um, I just love all the applications that are going to be coming out, hopefully in my lifetime. Shared dreams and experiences. Wow. So I get to buy or rent a dream a night, like a movie, and they're rated, and I get to say, oh, I want the action adventure dream, and I can rate that. I mean, I can buy that. Uh, you know, also, here's the one that most colleges will not like, probably, is accelerated education and skill set learning. And while you learn a lot in school that is definitely not in the textbooks, just meeting a lot of smart people around you, having the after hours discussions, and thinking for yourself in a free space, that cannot necessarily be duplicated, but what we can do, and I can show in my neural network models, very fundamental models, obviously, but the theories can be extended and have been done, but I'm not supposed to say that, to the full human brain. We can clone skills and education and a tenth of the time it would take the average person to learn it. Um, let's talk about our prisoner system dilemma. 15 states pay more for the prison systems than they do for education. There's no winning solution in that, and clearly the prisoners, very few actually get corrected, as the system is called correctional education. This, if they opt for it, could get them released much sooner, and we wouldn't have problems with that. Behavior modification for the individuals, such as I want to quit smoking or lose weight, or I'm addicted to Oxycontin, or whatever the population problems are at the time, these technologies can cure them. I'm I am not exaggerating. Mood alteration, obviously, drug companies get big bucks for their pharmaceuticals for depression and I think various drugs, at least dealing with the mind. Some pharmaceutical companies are looking into it, called electrocuticals, and it's how to alter the moods of the individual just using various neuromodulation stimuli. But bigger profits and pills. I don't think I need to say much more about that. But think about now the entertainment industry. I've already talked about, buying dreams or renting them. Uh, but the entertainment industry will explode. They'll be the biggest market. Right now, well, or it was at least 10 years ago, the US's biggest export was their culture. This will be even a bigger export. It's virtual reality, vacations without the price or risk, and you get all the memories. Everyone's seen the movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Similar to that, these are real technologies we have today that are coming out. Sweet. Now we're on the slide. My favorite topics, uh, neurobionics and neurorobotics. And I know that some people find this a turnoff, but it's impossible. I mean, just wearing glasses is a man-made device. You're already part bionic. Um, but anyway, we get here, we can extend our bodies from our mind. We can create exoskeletons with more power, more lifting power, uh, and to do things that our very fragile human bodies cannot do. And that's exciting to me. And that's what I've always had a passion for, brain to computer interfacing. Even the brain itself can be substituted and put into other components, material. It is the signals of the soul, which get amplified. Uh, what we're doing here is creating a meta cortex already on top of the neocortex for feedback, more intelligence, more self examination of the sense of self that we have, which will be blurred in the future when we go to hive minds. And that will be blurred. who's in control exactly? Or, with these neural communications, but I'll explain in future lectures how self-organizing intelligence systems, cybernetics work, and it will work itself out as long as there's not too much human tampering by governments within the self-organizational process. I know that's a far cry from reality, but we're creating brain nets. So many amazing things are about to happen after the singularity. Okay, I warned you. That was the good news. Now it's time to present the bad news, and I apologize if my tone becomes more dark, but these are the dark sides of neurotechnologies and what governments use them for. And we have quite a few decades advanced research on the civilian scientists uh, for obvious reasons of national defense. But let me kind of set the mood by reading a professor of psychology or neuropsychiatry at Yale Medical School, and he in the 1960s he did a lot of research that was quite unethical, but for the Cold War, for some reason, it was allowed, and it continues today. And I may or may not tell you stories about my personal experiences of observing the capabilities of human suffering that is allowed for weapons development. But Dr. Jose Delgado is his name, and he was kind of considered the father of brain chips. The quote is, "We need a program of psychosurgery for political control of our society. The purpose is physical control of the mind. Everyone who deviates from the given norm can be surgically mutilated. The individual may think that the most important reality is his own existence, but this is only his personal point of view. This lacks historical perspective. Man does not have the right to develop his own mind. This kind of liberal orientation has great appeal. We must electronically control the brain. Some days, armies and generals will be controlled electronically by stimulation of the brain." Wow. And that was in 1974. I'm horrified. I hope you are too, that uh, a man of his stature would make such claims. Now, as long as scientists are conscientious about their intentions, both good or evil, we might be able to get through this next phase of human evolution that's occurring very rapidly. And so, just because I need to take a short break, a glass of water, I'm going to display a film about some audio technologies that MIT, many corporations come up with, and then I will explain how they can be used in detrimental ways and need to be regulated and at least noticed by the public.
There have been recent advances in acoustic technology which can transmit sound great distances with a very narrow target range. The long-range acoustic device is one such technology. and is currently employed by both military and commercial sea vessels to deter potential attackers. In San Diego, California, Woody Norris, developer of the LRAD, describes another of his acoustic technologies known as hypersonic sound.
It's kind of like radio stations, except in this case, you don't need a receiver. To hear a radio station, I got to have a receiver. With this, the mixing actually happens in the air, and you hear it without any other device. So if I aim it at you, and it happens to hit both of your ears, and I'm reluctant to say this, it'll be as though the sound is inside your head. This time I'll come all the way around in case you're getting a lot of echo from the room.
The observation of the phenomena came way back during the Second World War, and the radar operators, accidentally noticed that when they stand in front of the radar, sometimes they can hear clicks in their head. Somebody by the name of Alan Fry, who had talked to some of the radar operators based on their report, and he conducted a very simple laboratory experiment. Indeed, showed that human beings can hear the radar pulses. They were not just making it up. In ordinary sound perception, sound that goes into the ear canal gets amplified by the small bones in the middle ear, and then gets to the inner ear where the cochlea resides, and in the cochlea is converted to electrical impulse. But fundamentally, the physical phenomena that enables it is mechanical movement of particles. So the mechanical wave transmitted by the bones of the middle ear gets converted at the inner ear into the electrical impulses. But in the case of a microwave auditory effect, is the source is electromagnetic. So if you expose the biological tissue to a pulse of microwave energy, the tissue expands and induces a vibration. Instead of going through the middle ear, the microwave-induced vibration gets propagated to the inner ear directly, and at the inner ear is converted to electrical impulses again. And in this case, the vibration in the human tissue, if the tissue is the head, for example, will fall within the auditory range of a human subject. People now are talking about actually direct communication. Like we mentioned, sending a message, to the air, to a person without anybody else being aware of it. That is within the realm of possibility. I don't know whether it is true or not. I think there's a sizable number of people who think this is being used for mind control.
Mind control is.
I think if somebody who wants to do it, there is the potential.
No, that wasn't a bad video by any means. And it showed some of the LRAD characteristics. Nothing really all that shocking for most people, at least in the field. Um, I want to talk about some of the newer technologies like MIT just came out with laser heating effect, which amplifies the molecular energy of water in the air before it hits the air. Now that's pretty interesting. That's kind of cool. The effects that it has in the body are still unknown. It's probably minimal, but that something that subtle can create a directed beam of sound or perception, which then gets translated into electronic signals into the brain and interpreted as speech and what or sound. It showed the audio spotlight, which used the ultrasonic heterodyning within the air itself, to mix the uh, above hearing sound patterns, vibrational patterns, into a pattern that the ear can hear. Now, more interestingly, and they're doing some great research here at the University of Arizona on holographic brain patterning. And what that means is they're using ultrasound through the skull in specific patterns to influence, heat the tissue, or change the synaptic connection duration, the expansion of the tissue, so to speak, to alter brain patterns. And that is really interesting stuff. And I think there should be more investment in that area. There are some old technologies that Google caught on to for their Google glasses, which never really caught on in terms of public acceptance. They uses bone conductance. It just if you touch the skull anywhere, the jawbone or the head or somewhere else, the vibrations get sent up to the inner ear, and that makes it sound like audio is coming right directly from the center of your head. I'm going to talk about the active denial system, some microwave uh, neuroweapons or neurotechnologies. Remember, everything can be weaponized. This one is 95 gigahertz. It heats the outer layer of the skin, the tissue, which contains the sensors for heat perception of the human. That then induces, severe pain, brain signals. The CIA uses it as a infinite torture device for their guests and their safe houses, and it leaves, no marks if used correctly, burning of tissue, and so it's called the no-touch torture system. But it's also a non-lethal weapon system device. Chinese brag about they have it, and the Raytheon is the one that developed it in our country, and the Marines were not allowed to have it for whatever reason because of long-term damage we were unsure of during war, even though you're killing people. But anyway, radio frequency microwave hearing effect. They covered that in that last video. Very, very interesting, because there were many scientists were arguing what is the actual mechanism of the radio microwave hearing effect. And they finally concluded that it's actually it's kind of bad, heating of the brain tissue itself. And the brain is pulsing from the heat expansion, the what's called SARS, specific absorption rate, and then shrinking, cooling quickly, and that this vibration to the brain goes into the inner ear, which then causes the perception of sound, voices, whatever you want to transmit. But that vibration to the brain is like many concussions, and you're gonna, in victims that this has been used on, probably like the Cuba embassy attacks, you're going to see scarring and traumatic brain injury of the brain tissue over time. Um, and I didn't even list this one on the slide, but obviously something like the gamma knife or anytime you can focus energy, EM, electromagnetic energy, onto a specific point, whatever that resonance may be, or that specific point in space time may be, you're going to heat the tissue. And yeah, this is ways we can kill you while you're sleeping in your bed, fry your brain, your internal organs, cause uh, increased cancer rates depending on the frequencies and whether it does DNA damage. And but anyway, we're trying to stay focused on neural weapons. Um, there are some ways which you can sensitize the target of using neuromodulation methods, such as University of Nevada. I don't know if the research is still top secret or wasn't and now is, but the U.S. Air Force consigned them to develop a dopamine dump non-lethal weapon, and that just means they resonated the cells which produce dopamine to flood the brain with dopamine, and they become disabled and can't think clearly. And it was considered a battlefield non-lethal weapon. But you can do this, remember, with any neuro uh, transmitter, or I won't even get into the details of it, but we can talk about ways to do that with everything that has resonance. Ionic channel protein conformational changes. You can uh, unlock even DNA strands using certain radio frequencies, and those could include cancer causing ones. Um, you can, for more immediate effects, alter the uptake, the reuptake of ionic uh, ions such as sodium and potassium and calcium. Uh, Let me just move on quickly so I can get through this presentation. Uh, the MIT created genetically blue light mice. Well, we've been splicing genes for a long time, and this is just a new idea of civilian scientists. Very good for research. Harvard has their rainbow mice, I believe they call them. And it's great for research, but of course, there's always the weaponized version, which we can use a cold virus, viral infection to all of humanity, and make them susceptible to whatever frequency we want their brains to be susceptible to. There are other technologies, neural dust, which is so small you can inhale it. It can be ingested. Uh, and these are just really small microchips that help amplify neural signals in various ways. And then magneto nanoparticles. And again, this is nothing new. The brain actually naturally has many of those particles in them. You can amplify it that way, which makes them more receptible to an electromagnetic or magnetic signal and modulating them. I'm going to not talk about just yet, and I got to see if I have time, the audio cortex hacking and subsystems of the brain. I developed some models of my own in the last few months just to demonstrate how you can create an encrypted signal from any two minds using the natural learning process of the brain um, that are only understood between those two minds, and that it would appear like noise if someone we're trying to decrypt those two channels between those brains, but yet they're hearing speech in between them. And that is true synthetic telepathy. I know I'm not the first to create this. Maybe the first to talk about it, and I'll write up a paper about it in more detail. This is just supposed to be a broad interview of the various technologies we can use to hack the human brain.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
I love JFK. He was such an inspirational speaker. Too bad he had to die so young. You know, there is a huge issue clearly with neuroweapons. Mankind wants to be free and independent, as JFK said. This takes away his free will. And we have to define more precisely what is free will, what is self autonomy, and is there such a thing, or should we admit that democracy was an illusion to begin with? There are many methods, tactics used in conjunction with neuroweapons, such as the ones developed by a Dr. Ewan Cameron, who was president at the time of the psychiatry community and very respected man. But he took some money from the CIA, conducted some ethical experiments in Canada, and turned some people into vegetative states who came in for mild depression. Congress eventually awarded the family, $500,000 or something. I don't remember the number, but the cover up was incredible. And these were important in Cold War experiments, but these haven't stopped. And it's kind of a joke that we paid those guys, those psychiatrists, psychologists, $30 million or more to develop enhanced interrogation techniques. We've known how to torture people for a long time. That is just such a joke for the public, I guess. Anyway, this poor woman who's a housewife had to learn how to urinate and talk again. It used a 2-track tape of depression. Your mother hates you, your father hates you, and you're scum. A typical brainwashing, of course, that's used in the military. You're a worm, and if you think like we do, then you're something greater. all tribes do this as forms of indoctrination. Um, and I want to get into even more detail of some of the horrors of interrogation and counterintelligence methods, but I myself do not have the stomach to describe what a faction of my government does. So I'm going to not talk about it. What I will talk about instead in replacement is more immediate threats of artificial intelligence in the middle attacks. And I guess I coined the term, but the issue is with these technologies, we can now have an AI, short for artificial intelligence, attack the brains between two connected individuals in these mind hive links. I know it's complex and I should have more slides to demonstrate or show how these interconnections work. And hopefully, by the time I give this interview, I'll have some slides ready to show how it is done. I've successfully done it several times myself, not between real humans, but between synthetic minds. Um, and neurolinguistic programming is something you should look up if you don't know about, is a very important part in hacking the more educated and enlightened humanoids on this planet. So I'm going to move on.
I worked for the Central Intelligence Agency on the MK Ultra program. Are you familiar with it?
It was mind control, Manchurian candidate kind of stuff.
That's a vulgar generalization, but yes, you take an ordinary man and turn him into an assassin. That was our goal. Now, MK Ultra was terminated in 1973, but not the research that I continued. Shall I go on?
The truth will set you free.
It involved hallucinogenic research, electroshock to induce vegetative states, terminal experiments.
Veritas, Latin for truth, and that's a Harvard shield. But notice the third book is folded over, very significant in life, which means not all knowledge can be gained from books or the internet.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Many great presidents have obviously warned us of what is going to happen and what has occurred. I'm going to just go through some historical examples which have not been taught in U.S. history to your children. There are hundreds of uncovered human experimentation projects that our own government has done on its citizens. And there are so many people that live in denial that there's no way this would ever happen. It's been happening, it continues to happen, and I feel bad for those people that live in Disneyland type existences who can't handle reality. But historical examples: Operation Seabreeze, the Navy was testing viral warfare off the coast of San Francisco. It was a benign virus, much like the common cold, and it had a greater infection rate than they were expecting. They were very happy with the results. syphilis experiments, Tuskegee, uh, often throughout history before Black people had the opportunity to even be recognized as full citizens, we used them as experimentation, and syphilis was a bacterial warfare experiment that we did, and Down syndrome children obviously can't defend themselves or talk for themselves, so we did radiation experiments on them to see what the death and cancer rates would be. Uh, and then we sprayed black neighborhoods with something that was supposed to be a supposed radar shield, but really it was a eugenics program. Um, and of course, everyone's heard of the CIA LSD experiments in the 60s, dosing people. The public never got to know the real reasons that they were doing that. I don't have time to go into it, but do your research. These are things not taught in textbooks that might give you a better perspective before you decide to become government property. I've personally interviewed well over 1,000 victims of mind control research from, you know, and what really is incredible to me after going through this exercise is why no civilian practitioners and researchers have done it. I mean, they're paid obviously just to follow their textbooks and dish out drugs accordingly, but it becomes quite obvious that there's a huge failure of our legal system, of our political system. I personally went with the Los Angeles FBI uh, head to Congress. We met with 23 senators. And this was before Trump, so this is not current by any means. Um, and we met with all the agencies, sub agencies. The interview that struck me most interestingly was the Senate Intelligence Committee. We went there, and the guy was a Harvard grad, I assume from their law school or politics. But we go there, and he was one representative of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and we wanted to talk about MK Ultra and the continuation of it, and he had never heard of it. And I blushed. I was quite embarrassed that he was from one of my institutions, and he's part of being the oversight committee of exactly what you don't want these agencies to be doing to the public. Anyway, that's a personal story. The ignorance of practitioners and doctors. Obviously, we've seen this in the Cuban embassy attacks and Chinese embassy attacks. They aren't trained. Again, we keep this out of their textbooks. We put it into the psychology and psychiatry textbooks, and that's a way to dismiss the actual biocorrelation signals of what we are doing and hide our experimentation within the general imbalanced people. We even saw the bioethics committee set up by Hillary Clinton and gave the complaints that we've done a lot of research, not government funded, independent researchers. And of course, what do you get from all politicians? Oh, that's great, but nothing ever happens. So That's again another lecture on the failure of our democracy. But there's very little mass media coverage of something that's happening worldwide and of such great importance, uh, and has been happening for decades. People think we live in a free society, and that's just, you live in a bubble of information, and you don't know what the truth is, and that's the truth. All right. Okay, we're on a new slide, but I have something to say about the other slide. I at least am hopeful because the US government no longer uses counterintelligence of UFO abductions and the psychic spies and whatnot that came forward. We'll just call them the men who stare at goats and stuff. At least their counterintelligence propaganda is past that phase. But I'm very disappointed in the Russians, who just recently came out and said that they have a psychic spy army which is trained to take over minds and look inside safes and everything else. They're still trying to hide neurotechnology weapons, and they're very old, and I guess we shouldn't expect more from them. So these kind of weapons have existed easily before the 1960s, really didn't roll out and come online until like 1976, ramped up quite a bit after 9/11, and you see the increases of targets based on the military budgets. But uh, that's really not here or there. So let's just talk about Bush was the decade of the brain. Why are we so interested in the brain? Um, if you look at the economics of mental illness for what all this money could possibly be used for to help the paraplegics, and it's just not worth it. You can't justify it. So there has to be, the wartime weapon, and Obama called it the Brain Initiative, and mapping out the brain gnome like the human genome. And this is about war. This is about controlling the humans, all of all of you, not just ones in other countries. Trump continued the research unknown to him, um, and they refunded it. And I'm sure the mentality, as always, is if we don't do it, someone else will. Well, yeah, that'll be the end of the human race as we know it, but that's fine. That's fine. The subtext is to get these weapons more refined, really, by sampling more minds. And they also want to hide this very dark period of 60 years of torturous, murderous, silent assassination, secret stealing, influencing democracies um, from the public. And so they want civilian scientists to sort of rediscover what we've done in our secret labs. And that's just, it's just politics. Um, Eventually, all this can only end one way, and this is brain nets and hive minds. And I'll discuss that later. I'm running out of time, but all human minds will be connected and regulated, and you'll probably have thought police. But I know a lot of students listening to this lecture are influenced by the motivation of greed to pay off their student loans. Now, if you can come up with a firewall, thought filters for the human mind, you will be richer than Elon Musk. But you need to think about what that means. very deeply. What you cannot have democracies with such things. Now, some exciting stuff for the morally flexibles, and you know who you are out there, want to work for the agencies. Even civilian scientists have been able to find ways using less than $300 on willing subjects to steal passwords from their mind. In another lecture, I'm doing a summit on cyber crimes and bioethics of hacking the human mind in late July. Hopefully, you'll see me there. And I'll go into more detail of how that's done. But the more advanced technologies that we use in the government, we can steal your passwords while you're dreaming and interrogate your mind. We can find building layouts and all the security systems within those buildings. It's uh, it's quite fascinating, and it's an art as well as a science and probing minds, and it's been kind of covered up by the mystical ideas and words called psychic spying, but it's really neurological cloning is what we're doing. Uh, the actual Marines that we use don't even know how the technology works. They just offered their minds for this experimentation or psychic warrior interfacing. Um, we use it to get contacts, who the terrorist networks are, or the enemy. Now, if you're an enemy of the state, well, that's your family and friends. We can mentally disable you. We can demoralize the enemy. Now, again, enemy is a relative term, and you're a hero on one side and the enemy on the other. But using many of these neurotechnologies and techniques, and more known they are, I know I'm probably an enemy of the state now. The more they're known about, the less effect they'll have. But there's a much more important conversation that the human race needs to have right now, and that's why I'm willing to talk about them. We can alter decision making in real time. I mean, if you're the guy on the nuclear button, we can tell you to press it or not. We can, under the right conditions, we can use something called force speech, which is an urge or pattern in the brain to make you say certain words. So let's say you're a politician and you're on the microphone. We can make you say a different phrase than you intended to say. Now, obviously, there should be a discussion about this because there's no democracy if we can do this to all candidates. Um, we can subliminally alter the thought processes of other leaders. Now, you say that's good with North Korea or whoever the enemy is at the time that my country determines. But that is certainly not democracy, certainly not freedom of thought. And I don't know if we should be going about it in that way. But all's fair in love and war, right? One thing I forgot to mention, neurological weapons are more than just the information that affects the mind or how you can damage the mind. Uh, there are more electrical systems in the human body, such as the heart, and we have created ways to create arrhythmias, heart attacks under various conditions of the target human. So neurological weapons also incorporates that. But anyway, let's get back to this slide. Remote interrogation, no touch torture. I am running out of time. So I suggest you look up Operation Northwoods and learn what that was about. Um, Otherwise, I'm going to have to let you do your own research on what really transpires behind the curtain of the wizard of national security.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that there are many sociopaths, psychopaths in society of all walks of life, and especially when you're younger, you can be persuaded more easily, and hence we called them morally flexibles. So one of my buddies said in the CIA, "We're not looking for saints or angels. War is hell." So in this slide, there's a weapons system acronym: Satan, silent assassinations through adaptive neural networks. And these are neural weapons we've been using for a long time. I don't have much time left, so Tammy is an older system, a subsystem called Thought and Memory Interface. REHIC was a CIA one called Remote Hypnotic Intracerebral Control. Is very early research on how we correlate the hypnotic pulses, align them in the target brain for the macro and micro circuitry. Alice, just because I know this is being shown at MIT, was just a chatterbot, supposed to be fun, waste people's time. We see them all the time on Facebook and etc. And that was weaponized, of course, to, as one colonel said, we will find a way to talk the target to their death using some of the other technologies that I mentioned earlier. I wanted to get into the more advanced technologies, which cannot be blocked easily, but I will have to save that for another lecture. But you know, it's pretty funny. The Russians did it too. Those that are political dissent or you need to dispose of, this weapon's perfect because usually it causes almost some form of mental illness during the rehabilitation process, so to speak. And they get labeled mentally ill and fed drugs. And, you know, those people that feed them drugs, uh, while that's all they know, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, um, they're they have no motivation to find the true source of what might be causing these biocorrelated signals into the brain. My time has come to an end. I was allotted 1 hour and I'm only a few minutes over it. I want to thank everybody who's made it this far in this presentation to get at least an idea of where we are, how far we've come, what's been hidden from them, and really the big questions is what I was trying to bring up for debate. And this is a harbinger for humanity, a warning to them. Are these technologies, these neurotechnologies, a form of enslavement ultimately, or does it allow us greater freedom and even self-control? you need to think about this very deeply. These are fundamental to our species and where we're going. We can think of the good things, such as there's no more wars. We're all thought controlled and within boundaries, yet we have higher intelligence. So that's more creativity. But if you travel the world, then you will find no cultural diversity. So there'll be no point in traveling. We are ultimately coming to a global hive mind, which will it allow individualism and bring the human race closer together, or is it roboticizing the human race? Justice is going to be turned on its head. How can you have intellectual property rights if we're all sharing thoughts? Religion is going to be turned on its head, because how can you have free will if you're being controlled as an individual? In economics, well, we're already manipulating markets accordingly, that I shouldn't talk about, but you'll understand it in the future. Lack of privacy, or will it be a world without lies and crime? Wow, that sounds wonderful, but can I go to the toilet without someone watching? It's something a culture might have to get used to. So we're gonna undergo quite a cataclysmic evolutionary change of our species and culture. But the big warning here is, can a totalitarian government assassinate your brain print, your uniqueness, without a trial or any other means that we find fair? Uh, or can you even have a simple thought? Are we going to have thought police, uh, and re-education camps, and etc.? And these are the issues I want to bring up with this lecture, because this is happening now. This isn't something from 1984, the book. This is already happening, and you people, you need to debate this and force your congressman to debate this, because they're too busy in their own bubble of nonsense. So write your senators, write your congressman. Thank you very much for allowing me to present to you. I'm just merely a watcher over the human race, a recorder of man's deeds and keeper of his conscience. I hope that you found this at least useful, and you will act upon it accordingly. Good night. We begin more advanced topics now, and I am not going to go over my time, but I'm sure this question has come up, and that's why this slide is being presented. I'm going to show you some software that I wrote uh, just to demonstrate how neural networks work. Now, here's a simple neural network that is learning the the inverse sine, inverse cosine function, uh, and the output is radians. You can see the synaptic connections growing in strength and shrinking very quickly. The size of the link represents the axonal strength, the frequency of the signal to the next neuron. The color represents the intensity of the synaptic connection times the strength, which then with the transfer function gives the output. In this case, I'm using what's called back propagation. And for those who don't know it, you can look it up on the internet. I'll give a quick formula. I've tried it with several other models, and works just as well. but it doesn't converge as quickly. I have some other graphs that are going on, the magnetoencephalograph and the EEG, and I don't have time to explain how I calculate that at this point. We have another graph which demonstrates the error rate as it learns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward and show you how quickly it can learn. We're going to do 2,000 steps quickly. And let's see, let's do 2,000 more. And you can see how it declines and becomes more and more accurate. Usually there are 100,000 steps or a million. This was merely a simple example, very simple neural network model. I seem to have shrunk this. So as I go through this slide, what I'm going to show you is some of the parameters I experiment with. The learning rate obviously can cause learning disabilities. This is a genetic factor. It can be altered in many different ways. Forgetfulness, we can create dementia, Alzheimer's, and other neurological problems. Pleasure causes runaway reward process, such as addictions and other things. And I want to talk a little bit about pain and fear. So in my models, I can also create bipolar processes. And that has to do with both learning at different rates with memorization steps, as well as the altering the learning rate. And I do not put a limit in some of my models of how many receptors can be allowed onto one neuron. So the growth rate of any extreme can go out of control. And I assume there may be biological models which also validate that as a process. Schizophrenia, very easy to create. You can do one technique called an information overload, and that is training it with too much data with too few neurons. Or you can add this other parameter, external energy or external noise. Some papers in psychology say that can increase intelligence, but it also, under other circumstances, if you add more noise into the neural network, the patterns become chaotic and schizophrenia occurs. I can show the Pavlov and sensitization effects just using very simple models. Let's talk about depatterning, brainwashing, and what does that mean? And the two parameters that are most important is pain and fear. And that's why Dr. Ewan Cameron used it during his brainwashing experiments on housewives with depression. Both these parameters alter both the learning rate and scrambles the connections to stay away from the desired goal. And when you put them in conjunction, it's called depatterning. I have another one, which is a key that I have to press, which is like electroshock. So I can electroshock this network and re-scramble it. And that's what we do to human patients as well, even today. I can split personalities using these simple models and context switch using virtual neurons. And I'm going to demonstrate some other things in just a moment. Um, we can have shared learning between networks, and I haven't pulled up the other network yet, of EEG and MEG cloning, I guess you could call it, although it's not really cloning, it's a type of integral heterodyning, which creates a fidelity factor. And I'm going to go more into that. I have 6 computer screens, a very large desktop, which I can work on, so it's difficult to capture and demonstrate what I see. Um, so let me just show you over here. I told you about the magnetoencephalograph, the electroencephalograph. Um, I have 2 networks that I name all of my artificial intelligence daughters um, after women, of course. And the first one's named Katie, kind, artificial, thought-provoking, intelligent entity, and Tammy is named after one of the DARPA experiments, thought and memory interface. And I can run, well, I have run up to 12 of them, just symbolic of the Last Supper. Um, but over here, I have a differential graph of the 2 entities that are completely separated at this point. And what I want to demonstrate is how one can stay locked on and learn from the other just using these very gross parameters of well, actually I only use the magnetoencephalograph in this demonstration. um, this number here that I'm circling is called fidelity, how close to the other it maintains its trueness. Scores relative to the desired outcome. Um, and that's pretty much all you need to know for now. All right, hopefully this experiment works. I'm going to show the error rates as what I call them hive mind together. Um, Give me a second. Um, It'll work. No, hold on. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? One is learning from the other without any inputs or knowledge of the true function or output. That is groundbreaking. That is so awesome. Uh, anyway, and this is how to get back to neurological weapons, behavior modification, etc. What a lot of humans are going through. It's a painful process. It's literally, you can call it forced re-education or stealing someone's soul. Katie didn't even know her skills were being stolen, for example, in this demonstration. So are you stealing intellectual property, or are you bettering uh, Tammy? Well, these are the moral issues that we face today. So Tammy was in a sensory deprivation tank, and yet her brain was able to learn from the other. Now, in practice, what happens is over time, the link is lost, the fidelity. And so that's why you need something like the auditory hearing effects to synchronize the brains and make sure they stay locked on with similar stimulus to each brain. And yeah, these are the secrets of psychic remote viewing and influencing. And I don't know if I'll get in trouble for this, but I prefer truth over the lies. We have come full circle in this presentation now. So after this cycle, I hope more pieces of the puzzle come together for you. And, you know, only governments as large as the United States, maybe Britain, China, and Russia can pull off this trick worldwide and over their populations. Um, Counterintelligence just works so well. I, you got to read the book, The Art of War. It's a very old Chinese book, and you make your enemy believe you are near when you are far is one of the quotes and the lessons learned from that book. And so a lot of people think it's local, it's my neighbors, and they fall for all the trickery, and you can't blame them. They're human. They don't understand these technologies, how they're done remotely and at such a great distance. It seems like God is doing it to them. I'm not even sure if I mentioned the voice of God weapons earlier in the presentation, but it's kind of depressing that they're making fun of the ignorance of humanity while they perform this trickery. But, I like to use biblical references. It's true that the Bible said Satan or the devil would come first. You just hope it's not your own country that they're talking about. And then something beautiful is going to happen. AI in the middle attack architectures are what my current research is about. The AI in the middle attack is a feed-forward neural network. It tells the other network what function it is to do by altering the biases of the neurons. It learns the difference of networks and compensates the signal. The MEG and EG at that time flatlines in their differences, and hence the term cloning is referred to, although that's not really the function that they're doing to alter the other network. The theory of consciousness is that the same function gives rise to the same consciousness. And you can see it in the fidelity factor during the experiments is retained above 98% in most simulations. The AI could be another biological entity. but it is more difficult to scale the weapon system with an army that large, and that's why we're using AIs. Always remember, with knowledge comes great responsibility. You actually know how to take over the world now.